R should do it.
Okay, I got it.
All right.
We are recording. All right. So we're talking about the use of Google in the classroom tonight.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, I'll start. I was talking earlier, before we were recording that, so the experience at my job, as an instructor, we haven't used Google much. Um, in any of like my most of my experience with Google is through grad school work, where I've used more of the Google Docs and things like that. At my job, instructors, we use a lot of Microsoft. So we do things either through Outlook or Teams and Office. In my field work, we did use some Google Docs where students would all share. They would submit their work at home and things like that. And they also did have one of those, like an iPad. The students didn't have individual devices. There was an iPad cage, which was brought out for instruction, and then students were, I didn't know exactly the protocol, but I think it was up to them to be able to like find a device and to communicate via Google while at home and then upload everything. And students had a lot of like back and forth through that shared Google Docs.
What
Okay.
district was that for?
That was in Penfield.
Oh, okay. What grade
Yeah, I
level?
know. At my job, we use Google for everything. I have a Google Classroom for each subject. We upload all of our homework assignments via PDF. So in case the students forget their homework, they can print it out at home, or they can write it down on lined paper and bring it in. There's no excuses not to do homework. Um, and some of our programs directly access the Google platform and gives us Google Forms where they can actually fill out the homework right on Google and submit it. They say forget like their math book. Like I know we use iReady for our math, and it ties directly into the Google Classroom. So any math assignments I can put right there, and I can upload the book. Sometimes I upload the answer key for the parents because they're like, we don't know how to figure this out. They need help. I'll just upload the answer key and send it to like one of the parents so they can see how to do the math. Um, I give assignments. It'll time them out. It'll actually grade it for me, so I can just put it in my grade book. So I don't have to sit there calculating everything. Trying to think what else. Oh my gosh, the only thing we don't use is the email. So we don't have a Google email, even though it's set up as an email. We only use like the meeting, the Google Meet, and we use like all the other Google platforms.
The school I work at uses Microsoft. So we do a lot of Teams and um, Microsoft Word and sharing through Outlook and Dropbox. I do like Google better though, because one thing I've noticed that when we do group assignments, it's a lot easier to work on one document when you're not emailing it back and forth. And when both of you can work on it at the same time online, that's very helpful. Um, so I did know my high school shifted towards Google Classroom when I was getting ready to graduate, and they still use it because I went back there for an interview, asked them about the platform they use, and they used Google. The field experience that I did out in Hilton, they used Google, and the teacher that I was with unfortunately abused that use of technology. She put everything on Google Classroom, copied it from year to year, and the students didn't have much collaboration or work where they were doing anything with each other. It was almost all online from COVID. And I just did not think that that was a productive classroom, and I did not like my experience with that teacher, to be brutally honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been here for 3 years and we've had Google. even though I post things on the classroom, I always change it up because I have kids who are siblings and I don't want them having the answers.
Yeah,
I always change up
smart.
my material year after year.
That is smart.
Yeah, I mean, most of the actual like hands-on experience I have, it's still like a no tech route where I'm in a self-contained like 714. So we are using the students thrive with a lot of that hands-on manipulative work, and we still do have a lot of like it's no tech, we're using binders, pen and paper, we're tabulating. There's, it's all right there. I'm graphing by hand. It's not being tabulated like you were saying, Nerissa, like it'll just punch it in and it's gonna give you the like the stats on it. But I do see a lot of like just from like grad school, a lot of the advantages of using the Google devices. I like how everybody's on the same page. It's like if the three of us, if we had to do a presentation on an AAC, we could all, we could create a Google Doc, we can make a slide, and we don't need to even have like a Zoom open. We could all add stuff asynchronously throughout the week. So I do like that. And I like how like Google's everywhere. So there is that kind of frictionless UI where students will be used to it. So it's not like, so you can focus more on the content or whatever the grade band rather than just like, wait, how am I supposed to use this? Oh, what is this? And so I do like that about Google. I don't know how dependent, my question really is how dependent are instructors though on like updates? Is there any of that kind? There's no control though, right? So like let's say I'm a teacher and I've been using, and let's say I'm really stuck in my, I have my way of doing things. And with the updates, I wouldn't really have control over that though, right? If there's one thing that really works and it's like kind of in, like, I don't even know an example, but let's say I was using one version of Google and that way it was really like it worked and I've had it like embedded in the curriculum and then it gets updated. I'm going to have to adapt, which is a plus and a minus because it's good to stay current and flexible, but that is taken, I guess, out of the instructor's hand.
With Google products, a lot of the times their updates only enhance what they have. They don't usually take away a lot of features.
Okay.
So I love that about Google. Even my phone is Google. I have a Google Pixel, so everything in my house is Google. At my school, my students have Chromebooks. To be honest with you, I maybe use them like twice a week because I don't like them staring at the screen so much. We do still do a lot of hands-on work. Like I still make 1,000 copies a week, and I still make them write because they need to practice writing. I don't care. They have a technology class where they can learn typing, so I'm not stressing out about them. Oh, they can't type perfectly. Like no, we still do a lot of things by hand. It's just an option for those who maybe need that technology. They get the option to have it read for them, and it does a whole lot of things on Google. Um, I like it because everything automatically saves. You never have to worry about backing up your stuff. It is like the minute you touch it, it is saved, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't even have to turn it on. It's automatically on. It's part of the Google Suite.
I remember those days of forgetting to save and then having to write half of my essay over again, and it was bad. I'd save it 14 times before I closed it after that. But something that you both mentioned was kind of like the accessibility, and that's something that I took in my notes when I was thinking about it, is how it's a lot like the iPhone, where that was created so that way it was user friendly and any user could figure out how to use it and operate it. And I feel like Google does a lot of the same stuff, but it obviously is a little bit more intricate than an iPhone, where you see the call button and that's going to call, and the same thing with the text message bubble. And then from there, it's you could use it as a lot more, or you could use it as just a phone. But with Google, there's a lot of easy access features. And I like how, so when I go and open a tab on Google, I there's like the dots in the top corner, and I can navigate to any of the other Google platforms that I use. So I'm not having to go through a search engine. I can just go right to the platform I need.
Yeah.
That does make it a lot easier.
And where else in my
I
notes?
guess I'm going to play devil's advocate. I guess a potential concern would be if, like, let's say if assignments and coursework, as that moves more digital, my question is just, I want to make certain that students always have reliable and affordable access. In the classroom, of course, like Nerissa, you were saying, there's those Chromebooks that are given. So that's there. All students have access. But let's say it is like, let's say I'm in a classroom, middle school class, it's ELA, and we have an assignment on conjunctions, and it's to be submitted. My question is, like, is every household going to have like a reliable like Wi-Fi access? And if there isn't that Wi-Fi access, let's say an individual does have a device, like a student does have a device, but they're going to be going on like roaming and using the data because there isn't that reliable access, or do they have to go to a library to do things that another student who has more resources, they're going to be able to have that free reign where they could complete their work at any time, whereas another student who doesn't have access to all of the same, like that digital variety, they're going to be more confined and constricted to certain times or resources. Maybe they'd have to, I don't know. That's kind of me just playing devil's advocate, but I do like this move towards using more of the technology because that is the world we live in. So of course, using something like Google, I do think there are so many benefits. It's just there's always going to be some sort of give and take, but I do like that accessibility and the fact that everyone's on the same page, rather than using a bunch of different like different platforms which don't necessarily all fit together to meet that one common goal.
So,
Right. Question, Alan. Google does allow you the option to work offline,
Oh,
but
cool.
you have to save it. And then
Okay.
you have to save
Yeah.
the device you're on because it's not going to automatically update if you don't have Wi-Fi. I also know that during COVID, when I was teaching, that the school districts were giving out hotspot cards.
Okay.
So if you did not have internet access at your home, you could request it from the school district. They would give you a hotspot card to use so you can use it on your devices at home.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that with the offline. I was going to share my screen and show Alan how to do that because I've done that where I'm working on a paper, and then I've got all my resources printed out, but I need to type it online. So I'll make like a document available offline until I get to the hotel, and I'll just start typing away while someone else is driving. And, get halfway through the paper, get there, and then it uploads to the previous versions once I get back online. And so that was a really good feature.
So that would be a good feature. Like if
Yeah.
I'm going to continue my example, that student who wouldn't have access, they can go offline, they complete their conjunction homework, and then when they come into school Monday morning, they're online, they'd already saved it manually, then they could upload it within the time limit. So that does
Yeah.
work. I like that.
And that would just be as a teacher needing to understand the circumstances of the student and then like shifting when those deadlines are. So that way it's not like, oh, because we have our classes that are online that are like, it's due by this day at midnight. Well, if it's a Saturday and if it's Sunday and you want them to have it in by Sunday, if they don't have that access, maybe it's before like within the first 5 minutes of class Monday morning instead.
Yeah, that's a really responsible like accommodation there. Or it would be like, okay, I know you did the work. Other people might have had it. Yeah, Saturday night. You got it Monday morning for me. Awesome.
Another question I had, you both are early childhood, right?
I'm 7 to 12.
So, okay.
7 through 12 as well, biology.
Well, then this is going to be interesting. I'm also 7 to 12, but so do you think as far as like in the lower grades, there should be a lot more limited access to the technology? But then as they get older, it gets to be embedded more into their curriculum. So like elementary school, they use it 1 or 2 times a week. Middle school builds up to using it in the building, and then high school is where like they bring that device home to do work because I know I'm in a middle school. We get cracked screens every single day. We get broken keys, we get broken something, the computer's not working right. And these kids are taking them home and back, they're dropping them, they get protective cases that they're not using. And it almost seems like technology is too far integrated that they don't have the matter of responsibility to respect the school's property.
I would say a kid in early childhood wouldn't even know how to be responsible with the device. I mean, even at home with a little kid, you take care of their device, you give them a certain amount of time to use it. And I believe the same should happen in school until they're responsible enough. Now, I know my daughter, she goes to Mercy. They got Chromebooks right away in 6th grade to bring home. So they go 6 through 12. They have Chromebooks that they bring home, and everything is uploaded to the not Chromebooks, but they only get Chromebooks 6th through 8th grade. And then when they get to high school, they get a Surface Pro. So now she has a Surface Pro. And they do have to turn them in. There's a $50 fee every time they break it. So they do charge. You have to have the protective case on it. Like you sign an agreement. So the parents have to sign the agreement for, letting their kid take out the device. I know my daughter found out that having it in her backpack was crunching the screen. So she had to carry it in her hands at all times. She couldn't put it in her bag. Like they have those like laptop pockets in your backpack. Like, no, those are garbage. Like your computer will be crunched.
Yeah, I have one of the protectors inside of the protective sleeve. I'm like, okay, now there's
carry my
now there's an extra half-inch of foam padding.
Well, I think a benefit of using something like Google is, let's say a student has, they have all their everything that they've done, it's uploaded onto their account. If I'm thinking about okay, like Nerissa, you said you said earlier you can upload textbooks and things like that. I remember back in the 90s or 2000 or aughts, all these thick hardcover textbooks. And, sometimes I remember them, sometimes I wouldn't, sometimes I'd leave them at home. And so it really is, it's the same exact thing with a Chromebook, whether an individual is going to remember to bring it to school or not. But the added benefit of something like Google is even if somebody forgets, they're able to access on maybe like a loaner Chromebook. And so we're talking more middle school where you can learn accountability. Okay, so if we have school expectations, readiness includes bringing your materials. Oh, maybe you get docked because you didn't bring your materials. You had to reach out, but there was that option to have maybe a loaner, and then you could sign into your account and stay, current with the lesson. I do think if you're talking very early, then Chris, I would say that the use of the technology should be limited, because I do know that inordinate kind of screen time, there has been evidence that can affect childhood development with too much screen time, more sort of face-to-face interactions, those type of real life language and interacting with materials that is important to our development. So I would say it's a teacher's responsibility to be mindful, because I do think it's important to integrate that technology. But yeah, a very young kid, they're going to break stuff, they're going to be rough, so be mindful of that. So maybe not even introduce the Chromebooks initially, some other type of low tech to introduce them, and to also limit it so that people are still engaging in different modalities. And the technology, yes, gets more integrated, the responsibility gets ramped up, and the integration continues and progresses as children go from K to 12 and beyond.
I would even say for communication, even in middle school and high school, like when they're working in groups, they don't need their computers. Like you're face to face, like talk it out. Use a notebook, write some ideas down. You can always type it later. But
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't believe a kid needs all that screen time. Plus the whole blue light thing and headaches and just no.
Yeah. So in Pittsburgh, kids get their own personal device in kindergarten. They use, yep. They get their personal device in kindergarten. They start being able to take it home and back in 4th or 5th grade. But it stays at the school over the weekend as well. And then in middle school, it's handed to them day one, and then they turn it in again at the end of 8th grade. And so it's just, it doesn't seem like it's, well, obviously I see all of the kids on their computers because we have the monitoring software, so I can see what's on their screens. And they're playing games and they're like, why is my computer going so slow? I'm like, wow, I haven't played any games on my computer. It is twice as old as you are, and it's running faster.
Right.
And
well, actually, we have a app here through Google called Para, and it allows me to see what they're looking at on their screens. And if they're playing games when I've assigned work, I can cut their computer off.
yeah, I can cut the internet access, and so
yep.
for the most part,
I can send them a message like, "You better get to work." I just keep the screen up, and I can see everyone's screen in my class at the same time. And I'll just click on it. And I'm like, all right, boom, boom, off, off, off. Come get your printed copy right here on my desk.
Yeah.
They hate that because I only let them use it twice a week anyway. So they're like starving for it. I figure they get enough at home. They don't need screen time at school.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Plus our chalkboard is a huge smart board. So they look at a screen all day anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important to have that socialization aspect in school. That's really key. And I mean, that's even though in terms of like moving into anything that's like more social, emotional, I do feel for children, for kids, young adults, adolescents nowadays, where I know that like back previously, let's say an individual did have like socially, they were, there was some bullying or they didn't get along with people. It was easier to kind of like it almost like go from like school life into home life. Maybe a person might retreat and have like their nurturing sort of like peer group or family outside of school. But now it's like, it's all like, let's say it was like there was something that everybody in class was submitting to some Google teams, that sort of like all the personalities, they're surrounded by either through social media platforms or the Google, however they're interfacing. You're going to have that interaction with your peers like 24/7.
Yeah.
They don't need it.
Yeah. One of my teachers was saying that his school does where all of the kids that have like the pods that you can put your phone into, or they expect like the phones to be out of sight at all times while you're in the school. And if they see it, it's taken, no arguments or anything about it. And the people who do the lunch monitoring, they complain that it's so loud. And it's like, no, that's just kids talking to each other. That's normal because that's something that the lunch people at my middle school said, but we don't allow kids to have their phones. And we don't allow them to use their computers during lunch, which I love because they do not need to be sitting there playing games. Just socialize, do kid things. Like, I don't even know what half of them do. They play with the food, they throw it at each other. Like, it's disgusting, but they're just being kids and no one's getting hurt.
In your food or drink.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, that's a practice adults could learn something from too, to like during while eating, like mealtime, like no computers.
Yeah.
Have you ever dumped out your keyboard? Do you see what comes out of it without eating around it? I can't imagine crumbs inside. Nope, it's okay.
Yeah.
We do have 10 minutes left of the meeting time because this is a free meeting. I didn't pay for Zoom, so there's a time limit.
I think we had a pretty good discussion. I don't think
Yeah.
All right.
And Nerissa, I liked what you said about having the hard copies and you like not doing too much on the technology. Like writing is still very important. I proctored a Regents last week, and after you finish it, you have to sign the test booklet. You have to sign your little Scantron, and I tell the kid that. I'm like, oh, you need to sign it. And they're like, how do I sign my name? I'm like, in cursive. I'm like, I don't know cursive. I'm like, then just write your name. And it looked worse than like chickens. Like it looked like worse than him trying to do cursive. It was that bad. And even just like writing names neatly, he couldn't, like the kid couldn't do it because all they do is they do their assignments on the computer. They don't have much paperwork.
right.
And I just like they are the kids that were in fourth, fifth grade when I learned cursive. They were in those grade levels during COVID, and instruction was entirely online.
Right.
And I think we're going to see the results of that coming through the school years, especially with the kids that were born during COVID and didn't have a lot of socialization prior. I think that's going to be a big thing. And then again, the dependence on technology. I feel like even little kids are watching screens all of the time, out in public, at home, just everything around the screen. And I think it's going to be harder and harder to pull that attention away.
Well,
The parents are to blame too. Look at the parents. All they do is stare at their phones.
yeah. Well, one thing I liked that you mentioned, Nerissa, about in your classroom is just the use of like encouraging the students to use like the multiple interfaces, multiple platforms. So it's like, even if, let's say, an assignment is going to be loaded up to Google, you're saying, and I love this, where it's like, okay, if it's that parent share or small groups, the Chromebooks are still going to be in the cage. We're going to take out pen and paper. We're going to write things down. We're going to have our handouts. So we're going to have that component. Then later on, it's going to move to another stage. Now we integrate the technology. So using everything, the face-to-face, the online, which the students are going to need later in life, but to have that holistic mix of everything, that's key. That's how we can really help our students prepare them for their adult lives.
Right. That's what it's all about.
All right. Anybody have a closing statement before I end the recording?
I'm set.
All right. I'm ending it.